Welcome back. Welcome for the first time. Maybe that'd be fun to find out. Peg, how about that one? If you would, let's get some chatter going in the chat. Let us know if you're first time tuning in to a webinar, if you're a
veteran.
You're just a groupie. If you're a groupie,
if you're a groupie, or are you a rookie?
Groupie, repeater, regular. There we go. That's what you call them, regulars. Nice. There we go.
Wow, we got a lot of regulars. Nice. Thanks for keep coming back.
Peg,
That's about a confidence carp right there.
You need to make t-shirts is what I'm we go finally a newbie. All right.
There's a newbie.
There we go. Great.
All right.
Hopefully everybody got to catch their breath a little bit over the holiday. We were thankful for that, I think. Yeah, but hey, listen, no rest for the weary. So we got to make sure we're keeping you guys on track, keeping ourselves on track, and we still got some work ahead of us here.
Yeah, just real quick, and somebody put in 2024, just put in the graduating year, high school year of your student. I think we're going to have mostly 2024s, but we might have a few. Yeah, mostly 2024s. Okay. Oh, there's a 2025. All right. All right. Well, just a few housekeeping items, since a lot of you guys have been with us. You know, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. If we ask you to put something in the chat, then put it in the chat. But in general, please, and we'll remind you, put them in the Q&A. If you want to be anonymous, you can be anonymous in there. And yes, we will send out a recording. So if you miss something, you don't have to worry. Or if you want somebody else in your family to tune in, you can do that. And we will do our best. You know, we have a lot of people on here, so we'll do our best to get to as many questions as we can. We might not get to all of them, but we'll do our best. That's all we can do. That's why that part of the reason why two of us are here, so we can answer your questions as best we can. So again, welcome. We are College Aid Pro. If you're not familiar with us, which a lot of you are, you know our mission to end the student debt crisis by empowering families to shop smarter for college. And doing this kind of stuff is part of our mission. It's part of supporting you to be an informed consumer in this process. And then we walk alongside you in the process and can support you in deeper. And we'll talk about that at the end, as we always do, how we can support you deeper. But in the meantime, we're here to educate you. You know, most of you have seniors, and a lot of you, I'm guessing, probably have younger kids. So this might be your first time going through it. So you're going to get better and better. So we'll go over some stuff that maybe you've heard before, but that's okay. It's a lot. And the more you hear it, the more it gets solidified in your knowledge. So we're all good. So I am Peg Keough, the Director of Education here at College Aid Pro. Have a background in the financial industry, had my own business, and joined CAP a couple of years ago, over 2 years ago now. But I also have twins, and I went through this with both my kids, which is probably one of my top credentials. So I know where you're sitting. I know it's a lot, but it doesn't have to be so stressful. So take it one step at a time. That's a really important thing. And just take a lot of deep breaths with your kids and just with the process. And we're going to talk about it tonight, but one of the kind of curveballs that you guys have this year is the FAFSA not being live yet. And it's a curveball, but everybody's in the same boat. It's not the end of the world. So we'll talk through that. We'll talk through that as well. So I have my buddy here, my partner in crime, Matt Carpenter, otherwise known as Carpy by me. So why don't you introduce yourself, and then we will kick in. And just remember, guys, questions in the Q&A. I'm already seeing them in the chat. So pop that puppy in the Q&A.
Newbies don't want to get on Peggy's bad side, so let's get ahead of that. Yeah, and to Peg's point, right, we'll do the best we can, but just we won't be able to get to every question. Please don't take it personal. if we don't get to yours. And the other thing is we can't answer like really specific questions in a setting like this. It's just general, because the fact of the matter is what might be the right answer for you is the exact opposite for your neighbor, your friend, whomever, right? There's not a ton of general blanket rules that work for everybody and recommendations. So again, kind of same thing. We're not dismissing you if we don't answer really specific questions. So just kind of take that with a grain of salt as well. And we're going to make sure that when we end here tonight, like we always do, you understand how to interface with us moving forward. If you want to talk to Peg or myself or any of the experts on our team, of which there are many, you understand exactly how you can do that. You will get your questions answered, and we'll let you know how that works. And again, for our groupies here, our regulars, we always reward our live audiences with some specific discounts and all that. So stick around till the end for that. But you're in great hands. Like Peg said, she's lived and breathed this with her own kids. She's done it professionally for coming up on 2 decades. This is all I've done for my entire career, 2 decades here. So again, I like to think that you are, I promise you're in good hands. I feel very confident about that. So without further ado, and some of this, for those of you who've been with us for a while in the beginning, it'll be a little bit of just a refresher. Again, let's zoom out a little bit, look at big picture. How does this whole thing work, right? And then drill down into the specifics of the CSS profile, excuse me, verification, FAFSA changes, etc. Take us away, Peggy.
Get some water there, buddy. You're getting too worked up already. All right, here we go. Okay. Come on, computer. There we go. There we are. Okay, so everybody should have received an email. I know a lot of you guys are groupies, so you are probably already in MyCap. You have your account all set up. You're rocking and rolling. You know your SAIs. If that all sounds like gobbledygook to you, please go to this link that Matt will put in the chat and set up your account. It's super powerful. You can set up a free account, put in up to 3 colleges. You'll instantly see your 2 SAIs. Matt's going to be in there to show you that, orient you a little bit, but it helps you get a feel for what these colleges think that you can pay. So definitely set that up, and it'll tell you, maybe you aren't eligible for need-based aid, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. So if you haven't done this yet, I strongly encourage you to do it. If you've done it, you can have it open on another screen. So let's just do a quick overview of how this all works. Like I said earlier, just a good reinforcement. If you've already heard this, if it's new to you, then it'll be good to hear. So the way that college is priced is a little bit nutty. It's a little bit counterintuitive. It's kind of analogous to all these sales we're having right now with the holidays coming up, right? All these colleges are on sale. They're all discounting their sticker price, their cost of attendance. They're just doing it in 3 different ways. And then some families will get all 3 and some will get 1 and all different combinations. So the first way they do it is with need-based grants. This is free money. This could come from the federal government, your state, but most of it comes from college endowments. And as the name hints to, you got to have need. So that's free money based on financial need. The middle bucket is the opposite. It's free money based on grades and test scores, has nothing to do with financial need. So for some families, that's the name of the game for discounts. And then the third bucket that we call self-help, that's loans and work study. So obviously not free money. Your child's either working for it or you're taking out a loan. And obviously you got to pay that back at some point. But it's part of a lot of college funding strategies for different families. And that's okay, as long as it's a reasonable amount of debt. And that's another webinar that we'll get into that. So how does this all work to find out if you're eligible for need-based aid? Like I just said, if you've set up your account, you can see your 2 SAIs at the top, and that stands for Student Aid Index. If you've been reading about all this in the past, you would have seen the term expected family contribution. SAI is replacing EFC. The calculations and how it's formulated is different. And we're going to talk about some key differences. Matt is in a few minutes. This is part of these changes and why the FAFSA is late this year. But they take their sticker price, the cost of attendance, which is tuition and fees, room and board, books, travel, personal expenses. They subtract this SAI, which is what they think you can afford to pay for a year. And that's going to differ from school to school. And there's two different SAIs that we'll show you in a minute. The difference between these two numbers is your need. So if your SAI, and Matt and I have seen these SAIs many times over the years, say your SAI is 110,000. Thank God you don't have any need, because that would mean the cost of attendance had to be higher than 110,000. So when you do the math of a 90,000 minus 110, obviously you don't have need. If you have an SAI of 50,000 and you're looking at a school that's 80 minus 50, you have 30,000 of need. Doesn't mean the college is going to swoop in and say, you're good, here's your 30,000 in need-based grants. They'll probably do something, but some schools maybe nothing, right? As far as the free stuff. But that's how it works. So the next question that should be popping up in your head is, okay, that's great, Peg, but how is an SAI calculated? Well, there's two big buckets. There's income and there's assets. And in both buckets, it's both the student and the parents' income and assets. So let's hit assets first. The first thing I want to share is, when are these assets assessed? It's the day you're submitting the forms. Literally, if you want to be that exacting and look at your portfolio, you could do that if the market's tumbling or something. And people that have submitted the CSS profile, this might be ringing a bell. So they're your non-retirement assets, not 401k, 403bs, IRAs. Those are all retirement accounts. That is not to be included when they ask for your net worth of investments. But everything else is fair game. Real estate that's not your primary home is fair game on both forms. On the CSS, they're also going to want to know about your home equity in the home you live in if you own it. And you don't want to overvalue your property. That's a whole strategy in and of itself, being honest but not overvaluing. The most common questions we get around assets, I'm just going to hit. Most people say, well, what about 529s? If a parent owns a 529, then it's an asset of the parents. And that's an important thing to keep in mind, because parental assets are assessed at a much lower percentage than the student asset. So it's a very common mistake, and we get it. You're saving it for your child. Seems like it's your child's money, but technically it's not. It's still yours. It's not a gift. Unlike an UGMA or an UTMA that you see on the slide on the right, that actually is a gift to the whoever is the beneficiary. So that's actually an asset of theirs. Although there are strategies to get that into the parent's name potentially. And that's something we'd have to talk to you about one-on-one, because it totally depends on your situation if you should even consider the strategy. There's tax ramifications. There's a lot going on there. But the key thing here is 529s owned by the parent are part of the parent's net worth of investments. Grandma and grandpa, uncle, aunt, best friend from college has a 529 with your child as a beneficiary. That's not on there at all. So you don't want to include that. Jointly owned accounts with you and your child, which is pretty common, that can be an asset of yours as the parent. So that's how assets work. As far as income, not real time, it's a 2-year look back, and we call that prior year. So most of you have a senior. All the questions about income that are going to be part of that SAI calculation are going to be about 2022. As I said, it's a 2-year look back. So if you think about the year they're going to school, fall 2024, fall 2025, just subtract 2, that's going to be your first year, and then the 3 next tax years after that. So parental income is by far the biggest driver. It's just the percentages of the income that are included much higher than the asset side. And income is what it is, right? You made whatever money you made in 2022. If it's lower, we'll talk about that later, you can appeal. But if you're steady Eddie and you're making the same amount, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it's based mostly on AGI. There's a few add-ins. You see on here that we look at, like I said, we're looking at the student income too, but for the federal SAI through the FAFSA, kids can make over $9,400 and it's a wash. So for most kids, On the federal form, it's not a factor at all because most kids aren't pulling in $15,000 a year. Okay. So that's how it works on the income side. So income plus asset. So if you are looking at your cap account and you're seeing a higher SAI, or you haven't done it yet, but you have an inkling it might be high, or if you just have a child that is a really good student, remember that next bucket that I talked about. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily what I call writing a full check. That's where you can look into merit aid as an option. And so I'm gonna let Matt dive in on merit aid.
Yeah, and just a couple of points here, right? And review for some of you. This is money that's given in some ways the opposite of need-based financial aid, like Peg said, just given to the student based on their credentials, based on the particular college, based on the particular year, right? And even sometimes we'll see changes within that year. So especially if we're not eligible for need-based financial aid, we want to figure out, well, what kids are going to give what colleges rather are going to give my kid meaningful discounts, regardless of our financial situation. So that's the first place we want to start, and I'll kind of show you how we do that within our platform in a second here. But as it pertains to the FAFSA and CSS, just like we always do, we've got a bunch of questions already. Well, why should I complete the FAFSA and the CSS even if I'm not going to be eligible for need-based financial aid? This is one reason. There's a meaningful amount of colleges that they won't consider you for scholarships if you don't complete those forms, right? We always use NYU as an example because it's one of the most popular colleges in the country. And this is them, right? So if you're applying to NYU and you're not eligible for need-based financial aid, but you want your kid to be eligible for scholarships, you got to go through the formality of the application process. And Peg's going to give a few more examples before we sign off tonight. The other thing that I just want to make a note of, not every school gives scholarships, right? So you could have a super talented kid, valedictorian, incredibly involved in the community, amazing athlete, musician. It doesn't matter. There's not one kid on an Ivy League campus that's there on a scholarship, okay? And there's about 100 colleges in the country in which scholarships do not exist, again, regardless of how talented your kid might be. So as you're finalizing that list of schools, it's just important to know, well, is it even possible, for my kid to get a scholarship based on his list as it stands currently? And the last bullet point here, especially, I mean, this is an important piece of advice for everybody, but especially for those of you that are not eligible for need-based financial aid, we want to make sure we're applying to competing schools, okay? Most of the families that we work with, we will have them apply to schools that they have no intention of actually attending, okay? We are doing that to create leverage so that when they go back to their top choices, they get accepted into these top choices. Maybe we didn't get as much money as we wanted, and usually that's how it works out. We can take this other school in which we got a better offer that is a competitor of theirs and say, hey, look, if you don't at least match or come close to this other offer, you're not leaving us a choice, right? That's a really important part of, again, minimizing your out-of-pocket expense at these schools, especially if we're not eligible for need-based aid. And I think you can go to the next slide here, Peggy, or maybe I'm even sharing.
Yeah, and let me just interrupt for 1 second because I messed up here. I hit answer live and I don't know how to go back. So I don't want to ignore your question, but you signed up. I'll address the FAFSA. Don't let me forget, Matt, about getting confirmation on FAFSA.
On the FSA IDs and all that. Got
it. Yeah.
And so this is a little bit of a reiteration in terms of the merit-based aid, but a couple things that are important is, generally speaking, need-based financial aid, you got to reapply every single year, and that dollar amount could go up or down based on your financial situation, whereas merit-based awards are flatline for all 4 years. So we can count on that being there regardless of any ebbs and flows in our financial situation. But Peggy, if I could share quick.
Yeah.
Let me do that, please. So I see most of you have already created your accounts, which is awesome. If you haven't, I'd recommend that you do already. But for those of you, again, that have this set up, you see this is kind of bringing everything we just talked about together here, where you can see, okay, here's my family's SAI. Here's what these colleges are actually going to cost us. Are we getting need-based financial aid? Are we getting merit-based scholarships? Is it both, right? So that's something that, again, we want you to start here. So there's no surprises when you actually get accepted into some of these schools. You're going to know ahead of time, what are they going to actually cost my family? And as you're finalizing your list of schools, one thing I want to make sure that you do, if you haven't already, is use this advanced search button. Again, especially if you're not eligible for need-based financial aid, I can use this button, put in some admissions criteria. Hey, I got a kid that wants to be close to home. They're going to be more comfortable at smaller schools. Here's what they want to major in, right? There's any number of different filters we can put in there. And then I just want you to show me who's going to give you the most in scholarship dollars. And it'll rank order that way, right? And, you know, again, maybe this school wasn't on our list, but if they're going to give us a $40,000 discount, $42,000, regardless of our financial situation, let's take a look. Even if we just apply to that school again as leverage, if we are eligible for financial aid, I can sort just based on that. Go show me the schools that are going to give me the most in need-based financial aid. And here's some, you know, a whole bunch of ideas where, again, maybe if we're still in the process of shopping, right, we're applying regular decision to a bunch of schools, you can get some great ideas there that also might be great fits, but at a minimum, we know that they're we can use those as leverage when we go back to our top choices. So again, we just want to make sure that you're leveraging this platform, and there's no surprises, right? We're trying to create transparency, and getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here. We will talk about, we'll just kind of tease at the end. You're going to start getting acceptances if you've applied early in the coming weeks, right? Middle of December, you can start finding out we're accepted, and here's what some of the awards are. I know some of you guys have got acceptance and merit-based scholarships, but you're going to actually get some financial aid award estimates. This part of the platform allows you to upload your award letter, and we're going to tell you, did you get a good deal, right? Is this a fair offer based on whatever college you've been accepted into early and have given an offer? So again, for those of you that haven't set up your account yet, make sure you do that. For those of you that have, I just want to tease a little bit what's kind of coming around the corner in the not too distant future here.
Yeah, and somebody asked, you know, how can I find out where there's merit scholarships if I'm not eligible for need-based aid? It's right in your account. Just click on the school, click on more info. We got all the merit awards there. And if they don't have merit, like Matt was talking about, you're going to see it right there. You're going to see
important.
no merit award. So it's all right there. You don't have to call the schools.
Right, 100%.
Which is a total pain in the butt, right?
Yeah. And so just real quick overview, right, before we get into the kind of nitty gritty of the profile and IDOC and the FAFSA. We hammer this all the time with our clients, with our audience, the whole deal. Every college is different. It's your responsibility to have an understanding of the colleges that you're applying to. What do they require? Is it just the FAFSA? Is it the CSS and the FAFSA? Are they like Princeton that has their own institutional application in lieu of the CSS profile? What are the deadlines? Do they use IDOC, or do I send tax returns directly to them? Or do I not send anything unless they ask, right? Every college is different. It's a very clunky, non-streamlined process. And the onus is on you to know what are the colleges that you're applying to require, and when and how do they require it. So that's just a quick overview in terms of, you know, applying for aid. You have to understand, if we're applying to 15 schools, it is your responsibility to understand what do they need, how do they need it, when do they need it. So go ahead, Peggy, if you can take over. I believe we're
okay. So Matt already touched on this, and this is the most common question I've been getting it since the moment I started doing this sort of work. Like, I don't want to submit financial aid forms. My neighbor didn't do it. My sister didn't. I'm not going to get anything. I'm not eligible. Well, the first thing is, sometimes people think they're not eligible. And as the cost of school keeps going up, remember how I showed you, the school's $92,000, and there's some that are, like, your SAI has to get higher and higher and higher to not have need-based eligibility. So that's the first thing. Some people don't think they're eligible, and they are. Matt already touched on the second bullet. There are some schools that if you don't have, especially the FAFSA, but sometimes both forms, they won't look at you for merit aid. So if that's the name of the game for your discounts, you're now leaving potentially $100,000 on the table if it's a $25,000 per year merit award. So that's a pretty big deal. It's much easier to submit the forms than to swallow that, right? It might be your only chance to apply for aid. Some schools, if you don't apply freshman year, you are stuck. COVID hits, your business is shut down for a while. You reach out to the college and they say, sorry, you never applied freshman year, so you're stuck. Do you want to roll the dice? I used to ask parents that before COVID, and now the COVID hit, it's even a more relevant comment. One of our experts, Mike Hinderman, who is the head of scholarships at University of Oklahoma, shared with our team, we won't even look at an appeal on a scholarship if we don't see that FAFSA on file. They might not tell the family that, but that's their policy. So you could be hurting yourself on that next step after you get all the forms in and your child gets in and you start appealing. Also, you need the FAFSA for your child to be eligible for direct federal student loans. These, for almost every family, this is the first place and best place to start for loans for a lot of reasons. It's in your child's name. They don't have to do anything but submit a completed FAFSA. The government's going to give them loans because they're encouraging them to get further educated. It's not in your name. You're not co-signing. It's in their name. They're building a credit history. It's a huge win. But without the FAFSA, you're stuck. And the last one, I'm going to steal this and give a little, not shout out, but just share it. Texas Christian University, a very popular university in this country, private school. I was just on one of their webinars listening about how they're handling financial aid with everything going on. And the director of admissions said, we like to have those forms. We like to have a baseline to start out for you. If it's high, your life can change, right? And the colleges are going to reassess need every year. So Matt and I cannot say it enough. We strongly encourage you to submit the financial aid forms. So hopefully I've convinced you. All right, so now let's talk about, we're going to do this backwards. We're going to talk about the CSS profile first. This form is live. Some of you probably have, if you hit the little emoji, do a little thumbs up if you've already been in here and seen it. Some people probably have. There's about 200, mostly private schools, that require this along with the FAFSA. So you're not done. You're still going to have to do the FAFSA. That's very important. But see, a lot of people have been in there. So that's great. Home equity, like I said, in the home you live in, as well as equity in your real estate, is fair game. If you're divorced or separated, the parent that provides the most financial support on a year look back from when you're submitting the form is the custodial parent. That's a new definition from the FAFSA. So that's going to be who submits it with the child. The non-custodial parent is going to submit the non-custodial CSS profile. So two different forms, very similar, but two forms that go to the college board separately. It's private. Business owners, if you're a business owner, they're going to get all up in your business and ask you, no pun intended, they're going to ask you a lot of questions about your business, right? To get to the bottom of it. It's a long, somebody put in the Q&A and I was thinking, how should I answer this? And I just didn't answer it yet, but how long does it take? Totally depends, right? Some people could literally take 3-4 hours to go through it. If they're not numbers people,
The average I got recently was 3 to 6, believe it or not. Peggy.
Oh, really? Yeah. It's long. It's long. They really don't leave any stone unturned, if that's the phrase. Sometimes
and everybody's different, right? Obviously, not everybody.
Yeah. And you're gonna get into the college board. You're gonna get into the CSS with your child's login credentials. If you're divorced, then the non-custodial profile is different. But to get into the main CSS profile, it's your students' college board credentials that they should have if they're doing APs or PSAT, SAT. That's all college board. So let's just quickly go over. These are just guidelines. You're going to notice in the CSS, there's required questions. There's questions that aren't required. If you don't need to answer it, you shouldn't always answer it. It doesn't mean that you never should answer a not required question. There's some strategy there, and it really depends on the family. So, but some people are just really nervous, like, is that wrong if I don't answer it? It's just like the old SAT. Like sometimes it was good to leave a question blank if you didn't know it, right? So I just thought of that. I haven't done that analogy before. So it is what it is. I already mentioned before, you don't want to overvalue your primary residence or any of your real estate. You want to be honest. There's different tips and tricks around that and strategies. It's not the same for everybody. Always use this avenue. It can depend on where you live. Some calculators will help and some will be higher. It just depends. 529 accounts, already mentioned. If the parent's the owner, that's parent asset. There is a question on the CSS that asks how much you're going to contribute as a parent. You want to be careful not to overstate that. They're also going to ask about earnings that aren't in 2022. Again, it's not part of the calculation, but they ask, so don't want to overestimate those. And Matt probably mentioned this on his earlier slide, deadlines really do matter. You got to be on top of the deadlines with your kid. Kid's going to have to be on top of that in college anyways. So it's a good skill set if they haven't developed it yet.
Yeah,
So
Peggy, let me just, because there's couldn't agree more, right? As we know, and we don't want to give these colleges any excuses to give us less money because oftentimes they will oblige, right? They will take us up on that. However, there's no advantage to submitting the FAFSA the day that it becomes accessible. And I can promise you, one thing I can tell you about this new FAFSA, it will crash on the first day that it's available. And at least for that first week, this isn't going to be the first year that it doesn't crash. Okay. There is no advantage. You will not get more money in submitting your FAFSA the day it becomes available, right? So long as you are hitting the priority deadlines at the colleges you're applying to, you are in that first wave, priority, whatever word you want to use, of money. You miss it by a day, now we can be in trouble, right? But whether you hit it by a minute or you're 2 months ahead of time does not matter. So sorry to interrupt, but that's a pretty common question.
Yeah, unless it's a first come, first serve, and that's pretty rare. That's pretty rare. And so, all right, sorry, I was jumping into a question here. Okay. All right, so here's a screenshot. So you've finished the CSS. Here's your child's dashboard. This is what it's going to look like. You can do a correction. You can save a copy. And you can always add more schools. The College Board will be happy to take more of your money. You go in, you can add schools. So you don't have to worry about, oops, we forgot one or added a new school. And then down here, you see IDOC. We've had a few questions about this. Once you finish the CSS, you're not done. The next thing is you've got to upload your documents, your tax documents, to the school. And it's either through IDOC, which is another part of College Board, if you will, but some colleges will want it through their portal. So you want to definitely go in here and hit this. It'll take you into your IDOC, and this is what it looks like. This is a sample IDOC. So you see my sample here has got Amherst and Babson. Those are the two schools that use IDOC that this student was applying to that require the CSS. And you see there's different forms here that these schools are requiring. And so you're going to need soft copies. If you don't have them, you got to get it from your CPA or scan it into your computer, because that's how you're going to upload it. And that's pretty common. But you will upload the documents, and then they'll be down here like my sample PDF. And then when it gets processed, it'll end up under process documents. College Board is having an issue this year that stuff is not getting processed very quickly. The deadline to get the CSS profile in is not the deadline to get IDOCs in. Okay, get your docs done through IDOC or through the college portal. Just keep that in mind. You don't want to wait months and months and blow it off because they can't give you an award letter, but you don't have to worry about doing it if it's available like within 12 hours of the CSS. Just get it done. But there has been an issue with this not showing up as processed. If you're getting stressed about anything, call the college. and I know it's a pain, but that's really all you can do. I don't know why the CSS is having issues with it this year through IDOC, but things are taking longer to process. And they're getting, or some, isn't it, Matt? Sometimes it says it's process, it shows it's process, but they're getting emails from schools saying, hey, we don't have your IDOC yet, you know? So
Yeah, they're just having overall tech issues. It's like, just to somewhat echo the sentiment you just shared, it's like there's not a hard deadline with this IDOC, and it's really confusing, and it gets people super anxious, which I understand. You're like, oh my god, the deadline was November 15th, and they say they still don't have them. You're totally fine, okay? And if you want an extra level of reassurance, you can call, because I've had people waiting 6-8 hours literally on hold with IDOC and College Board trying to get through. Call the college's financial aid office to say, hey, and ask them directly. In most cases, they're going to be like, yeah, guys, we got them. Totally fine, right? Or don't worry about it. You know, IDOC's having problems this year. They'll reassure you that there's no firm deadline with this. But what I would do, like, number one, I would kind of listen to what Peg and I are saying here. Like, do your best to upload the things to IDOC. Understand that it's basically broken this year. Don't sweat it. If you want some additional reassurance, call the college's financial aid offices and see what they're seeing on their end.
yeah, and if they don't use IDOC, then you do have to go into your child's portal and see how to upload it. And the school will probably send out an email, but it's you just have it in your mind. That is the next step. You're not totally done yet. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Now the FAFSA, and I think I'm doing this slide. No, I'm doing this slide. Yeah. So, and we talked about this. So, I told somebody in Q&A, a couple people, here's the link, but if you Google it, just make sure you're on studentaid.gov/FSA, you know, not on some copycat site that's trying to grab your social security number and your, date of birth, because you don't want to share that with the wrong people for obvious reasons. Go in there. If you haven't done it, go ahead and do it. Somebody put in a question. We did it. We haven't heard. Usually it takes like 3 to 5 business days. If it's been weeks and weeks, you might want to reach out to FAFSA. You might not be on hold that long right now because it's not live. The people that run the FAFSA desk, some of them are good and some of them not so good. So, but if you're really stressed about it, you might want to call over there and just be on hold while you're doing other work or something and check on it. But if you haven't done this yet, that is the one thing you can do. The FAFSA is not live yet. All we're hearing a week or so ago before Thanksgiving, they came out and said it's going to go live. And what they said is by December 31st. That's the quote. So is it the 31st? Is it tomorrow? We don't know. So, well, it's not tomorrow because that's not December yet, but hopefully sooner rather than later. And as Matt said, please don't go in the day of, right? There's no deadline that's going to be the day of, because it most likely, one, it has issues with crashing in a normal year, but now it's new technology. There's a lot going on. So real quick with the FAFSA, only one parent submits the FAFSA. This is different than the CSS. There's no non-custodial FAFSA, right? Only the custodial parent submits it. And it is that same definition with the new legislation. It's the parent that provide the most financial support on a year look back from when you're submitting the form. So it's going to match the CSS profile. And there is some wiggle room there. If you have a child that doesn't have a CSS profile school and you haven't figured this out yet and you're 50-50, we are more than happy to support you on how do you figure out who's the custodial parent, because they're really, it doesn't need to be 50-50, right? Figure out who's more beneficial from getting the most need-based aid standpoint and have that parent support the child a little bit more financially. If you can make that work and you have an amicable relationship, it could get you a lot of endowment money as opposed to paying more out of your pocket. So stay tuned. You're on our email list. The minute we know, we will be letting you know for sure when the FAFSA is going to go live. But in the meantime, get your FSA ID. And oh yeah, it's for the parent and the student. You both need it. And I'm not going to get in the weeds on how the FAFSA, how you're going to do the FAFSA, but even if you're married, I would just have both parents get it. They suggested that you're not going to need both if you're married and your filing status is similar, same as your marital status from 2022. But if I were you, I'd just both of you get it. It's easy to do. It's free. If one isn't working, the other one can go in, just, I would do that. And this, because the student's going to invite both of you. So I would have both parents do it. And if you're divorced, then just the custodial parent should do it because the other parent is not submitting one in any way. All right, I'll let you take over here, Matt.
Okay, so, some major changes this year. Peg just hit on one of, if not the biggest, right? And I think you can make an argument for a few this year, right? The first one we're looking at, 2 households, split household families. If you're divorced, if you're separated, and it doesn't matter, there's no distinction between the two, but if there's 2 different addresses and you guys are no longer together, even if that hasn't been formalized, you're considered a 2 household family. And again, it really matters which one completes the FAFSA, and there's an incredible opportunity this year. I think this is more of a opportunity than a negative if you play your cards right here, right? But in terms of, well, which parent is going to complete the FAFSA, should complete the FAFSA. So I think we've been able to provide a ton of families with, I think, a lot of meaningful value that fit somewhere in this bucket and helping them decide, well, who should complete the FAFSA. But it still allows us to be within the rules of the game here. And what are schools doing? How are they reacting to this? So that's the biggest one, right? Of now it's who provides the most financial support, not who does the student live with the most, who claims them as an exemption on tax returns. Child support's got nothing to do with it. So really interesting situation. But if we play our cards right, we can use it to our advantage if we're a family that, again, falls, somewhere in that bucket. I've already answered this question a few times. Not good news right now. The sibling discount has been removed from the federal calculation in determining need-based financial aid. It's a ridiculous, terrible rule. We did our best. We actually made a petition and got over 70,000 signatures to try to stop this from going through for this year, to no avail. But that doesn't mean every college, okay? Most CSS profile schools are still going. I know I chatted with a couple of parents of twins in chat. Most CSS profile schools are going to still give a break and consider the fact that you're putting more than one kid to school at once. But all the schools that are FAFSA only, they are not, which really stinks. And kind of the third bullet point there is stating that, and you're not grandfathered in, right? Which I think is especially ludicrous. That some of these families that have their kids in colleges currently under a certain premise that we're getting a discount because they had more than one kid in school, they're going to get the rug pulled out from underneath them next year. And the last one, and again, I promise we're going to end on a high note when it comes to these FAFSA changes, but the last negative one here is business owners are getting screwed. Okay, it used to be that if you had less than 100 employees, you didn't put anything about your business on the FAFSA, but now they want details. They want the evaluation, net worth, assets in your business. Even if you're a sole proprietor, even if it's just you, this is going to screw a ton of business owners. And again, I urge you, if you are a business owner, please talk to us before you hit submit on the FAFSA, before you hit submit on the CSS profile, because it's going to be very easy to step on landmines that you do not need to step on if you are a small business owner. So please talk to us before you submit the forms. If again, you're anywhere in those categories specifically. Now, let's switch to the good news here. Like I said, not all doom and gloom. Low-income families that have the least amount of resources, more help's on the way. The Pell Grant is going up, so we're getting more money. It's easier to qualify for. The thresholds are going up. The form itself is going to be easier to submit. So families that need the most help, more help is coming, right? Which is great. If we're a family that has a 529, we are not being punished for any 529 savings we have in other siblings. names, right? That used to hurt us, even if we had younger siblings or we had a sibling already in college. They were holding those 529 balances, against us, for lack of a better term, where now they're only considering on the FAFSA 529 savings in the student's name, as it should be. And then the last one is, if we contribute to a 401k or 403b at work, right? It used to be that any contributions we made towards those qualified retirement plans got added back onto our income, and essentially it was a wash, right? It didn't help us necessarily to contribute to those plans, where now it does. So now, if you have the ability to contribute towards a 401k or 403b and max those out, obviously you're getting the benefits of lowering your taxable income, increasing your retirement savings, and maximizing your eligibility for need-based financial aid. So that was a nice one as well. So again, just to kind of end on a high note for some of these FAFSA changes, but yeah, if any of those are speaking to you guys, I'm going to make the firm recommendation that you talk to somebody in our team before you hit go on those on that FAFSA.
All right. So let me give you an example, because I think it's helpful. I know there's a lot of stress around, well, how are these colleges going to deal with this? And I was on a webinar for professionals with Willamette. So if you're from Pacific Northwest, you've heard of Willamette. It's a private school, FAFSA only. They don't require the CSS in Oregon. So this is how they laid it out. So, and now was earlier, right? Because I've been on it. And we can touch on this: early action, early decision. So you probably, some of your kids have applied ED. That means the admissions application is long in, your CSS profile should have been in as well. It's binding unless you can't afford it. Early action is an earlier deadline without the binding feature. And most schools, that deadline, maybe it's December 1, but they all differ, but you're getting close to those deadlines for the application as well as for financial aid forms. So their deadline was November 15th. This is just the example with Willamette, but I'm trying to kind of show you how, because they're trying to figure this out too, right? They don't know when the FAFSA is going to go live. So they're all in the same boat that you are and we are. We're trying to support you. Admission decisions will come out with potentially no FAFSA yet, right? Sometime the FAFSA is going to be released, is what they're saying. They're going to have a January 10th priority deadline to have that FAFSA in, right? And as we've said, this is a really important deadline. Notice how it says priority. If you're late, you're not priority, and you don't want to be in that bucket. It could mean a lot of money that you're not receiving. Then regular decision and scholarship application deadline is in February. Then you see here early March, mid-March. The regular, that's the third way to apply, is regular. That's the latest one. Some schools only have ED and regular, so don't stress out if you haven't heard of EA. The schools might not have EA, might not have early action. But I wanted to give you an idea here of how the schools are handling. One school is handling it. Early March financial aid offers for early applicants with the FAFSA and the competitive scholarship decisions. They're coming out early March. That's later. That's later than they've come in the past. So the downside of all of this is it's squishing it, right? I always tell Matt before we went live with my two, I took a trip on winter break with my kids because they were already into some of their schools with financial aid award letters. That's just almost likely not going to happen this year. And it just is what it is, right? It's going to compress everything, but that's even more important for you to have your ducks in a row of these steps that are coming up and what a financial aid award letter is and how you're going to appeal, and just be ready for all this, because you're not going to have as much time. But hopefully this helps to kind of give you a timeline for one school. The CSS schools, as we've shared, you've sent it in, a lot of you. So they have that. What some of them are kind of saying is, yeah, we're going to come up with an unofficial award and send that early. They can't give you an official award with federal aid until they get that FAFSA and they have time, they get the SAI and they can look at that and put that all together. They're just not allowed to do that, right? They can't do that without the FAFSA, but I'm guessing, and Matt and I were talking about this too, that they're gonna put forth an early unofficial, like, hey, this is what we're projecting. If they know the merit, which has nothing to do with the forms, and then they have an idea of your need-based aid, they might throw that in too. I think they're all kind of figuring that out, as they go here, because they want to give you an idea. They want to give your child an idea. They want to be front and center with all their competitors. They want you to have that award. So they're incented to get it to you as soon as possible. So I will turn it back to Matt, but just to tee this up, I don't know if there's been any questions since I've been talking, but we always get these questions, like, I lost my job. What does that mean? I'm retired now, but I wasn't in 2022. Well, that's the next step in the process. After you do IDOC, after your child gets in and you get the financial aid award letter. So I'll let Matt touch on this.
Yeah, and the big to Peg's point, right? We're obviously we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but we like to plant the seed early and often. And the base and a lot of it is a mindset thing. You want to have this mindset that when your kid gets accepted into a school and you get a financial aid offer, we don't want to accept that first offer. Just like any other major investment that we've made, in most of our adult lives, we want to have that same mindset for college, but it's not common knowledge in our experience, right? And there is a method to this madness. There's a right way to do it. There is the more sophisticated our appeal, the more likely we are to have a successful appeal, right? And we're very fortunate where we have a lot of college representatives on our team, right? MIT, Harvard, University of Oklahoma, Denison, the former director at University of Southern California. So we have Boston University, Bryant, we have this pipeline into the college's vantage point, right? And so we know what you need to do to maximize your odds of being successful and doubling back to a school to try to get more money. And some of the things are somewhat obvious, right? Of, hey, we had a weird year in 2022. We had a one-time income distribution, or we've had this really significant change, right? We talked to a ton of people where, hey, we filed jointly in 2022, but we've been separated or divorced since then, right? So it's a completely different situation now, or we've had some type of, God forbid situation since we filed 2022 tax returns, right? Any number of things. But the point is that we want to have this mindset that we're never accepting the first offer, even if we don't have something grandiose to bring back to these schools, but something that we can do now at this stage before we've even been accepted to a college is making sure that we're applying to those competing schools, right? Bullet point number 3 that I teased earlier of having leverage in our final list of schools, if nothing else, just for this kind of part of the process, right? That again, these things are going to start happening in the coming weeks for those of you that applied early action and or early decision. And I think, Peggy, if I can
Sure
share now, or did you have anything else beyond that? I forget. Was that our last slide?
I believe so. Yeah, that was
perfect. So a couple of things that I want to talk through kind of as promised, because we got a bunch of questions in terms of how can I talk to you guys after this? A couple things from a high level here, right? We obviously this is not a perfect science or an exact science, and Peg, if you can put this,
I'll put it in
link in the chat with the coupon code. But if you're a DIYer, what we recommend is, first of all, and Peg will probably have her own version of this, and I'll steal a little bit of her rhetoric, but do something, right? Do something. This is such a huge investment. There's so much at stake here. If you are a DIYer, make the if you decide to book an hour with us tonight, right? Make the $279 investment to make sure that you are doing everything that you can to maximize your odds of having this be the most successful outcome possible, right? So if you use a coupon code tonight, if within your MyCap account, right, you go up here and you hit talk to an expert or upgrade, okay? And if you haven't created an account, you can do that now, and you can select this premium plus expert option. It'll give you access to all the bells and whistles of our platform for the next year, and you get an hour with any one of our experts at any time. So, and again, that can be with Peg and myself, and Peg will tell you, me and Peg like to think of ourselves as the top of the food chain in subject matter expertise there. And we belong there, Peggy. We belong there. Let's put us there. But guess what? We got great company there, right? And we would be just as comfortable with anybody that you're going to find on our team, and you meeting with them. And you can go on our website and say, hey, let me look at their background and their expertise, and are they out of college? Were they formerly out of college? Have they been doing this forever? Whoever you connect with, you can book an hour, and you can do that at any time over the next year, right? So for example, if you've already submitted your CSS profile, a great investment for you would be to have us stare at it. And 3 out of 4, and this is coming from our teammate, JP Schmidt, who is the director of financial aid at USC, he said 3 out of 4 applicants make a mistake on the FAFSA to CSS profile that costs them money. Okay, so that's an unbelievable data point. And these are very smart people, right? You guys are all smart people, right? And that if you've done that form, but let us stare at it and say, is there an opportunity to make a correction that's going to lead to more money? If you haven't submitted it yet, let's go through it together. If you have and you feel incredibly comfortable, you can use that hour when it comes to the FAFSA before you submit that. Let's look at your list of colleges and make sure that you're applying to competing schools. You can book this tonight and use the hour when it comes to appeal time, once you've been accepted and you want to work with us to figure out how to go back to your top choice and get more money. You're going to be very happy. You're going to thank yourself. I'm not minimizing what it means to spend $279, but the ROI is going to be a no-brainer. Now, if you're a family that hasn't completed the FAFSA and the CSS profile yet, I know nobody's completed the FAFSA, but if you haven't completed the CSS profile yet and you're not kind of all the way into, you haven't finalized that list of schools, and you're someone that is like, I'm not a DIYer, I need all the help that I can get, you're going to consider this Wake Me Up When It's Over package, right? We charge $4,000 from it. If you book it by Friday, you get $1,000 off, right? We do the FAFSA for you. We do the CSS profile for you. We're going to be on the front lines appealing. We're going to be the one that finalizes your list of colleges, making sure that you're applying to competing schools. We're going to make sure that you're paying the bill the right way. If you have to borrow, how do you get the best loan? If you have resources, when do you use what? You're going to have an unlimited one-on-one expert to drag you through this entire process, right? Not ring-fenced around just an hour here. So you can do that. You can sign up, right through the link tonight. If it just sounds like too big of a commitment, I understand it's a big one, and you want to talk to somebody first, again, through the link, you can book a 15-minute call with one of us to make sure that it's the right fit for your family before you take that leap. You just got to book the time by Friday, and you got to, actually sign up by Friday, because that's when that coupon code expires. The other tier down, if you're just like, we're all over this, but we just want some help with the forms, we want somebody to do the FAFSA and CSS profile for us, we do have a package just for that. It's $1,500, right? I can put that in the chat here, right? We don't have a discount for that, but if that's something that you're like, I just want help with the forms, I don't want to do those things, and I don't want to screw them up, whatever, that's another option. But I think our kind of theme would be just do something. If you're a total DIYer, at least have all the tools at your disposal. Better yet, upgrade so you have an hour with any one of us over the next year. And if you're someone that like, we need all the help we can get, and we want someone to grab the wheel and take over here, then you're somebody that's should consider that Wake Me Up When It's Over package. But hopefully that gives you an idea. Peggy, anything that you'd add there?
Just the main thing is just stay engaged. Stay engaged. A lot of you are 2024, so you're in the thick of it. Sometimes we're talking to parents that have a freshman, right? And they're not ready to jump in. Okay, fine. Stay engaged. You guys are in the middle of it. And as Matt said, I know not too far in the future, you're going to be parting with a lot of information. Let us help you part with less. Let us help you take some of the stress out of it, stress with the colleges, and honestly, stress with your child. Like, to get through all this, it's the last year, and you're going to be waving goodbye at that dorm before you know it. I still remember those 2 days very clearly in my mind. So just do something. It's really easy to be on a webinar and say, oh, that was great, and just plop it over there. We have deadlines for a reason. We're trying to support you to like kind of keep you going there. So amazing discount. If the Wake Me is speaking to you and landing for you, I can't believe we're giving these discounts, to be honest. It was usually a fight to get 500, and now my buddy here is really pushing the envelope. So
you didn't know that. It's funny. Before with Jera, we kind of went out on a limb and we said, Deggy and Peggy are not going to know, but let's go for it.
Peggy is our CEO, in case you don't.
Yeah, I said, I'm going to ask. What is it? Ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Yes.
But what I just put into the into the chat, that's the 15-minute link. If you want to talk to somebody before you commit to the $3,000 purchase by Friday, you can do that. Just book a time there to talk with us this week. And then another question is, what if I book an hour, I pay the $279 today, and then I want to upgrade to the full package? Can I credit that hour towards it? The answer is yes. So that's what some folks do too. Let me see if I can get done what I think I need to get done in an hour, and if I can't, and if I think that's the best fit for me, you can credit it towards that. I don't think I'd have to think about. You'd have to do that hour this week though, because that coupon code will expire on Friday. So that's one you'd want to choose. Kind of meet with the next available. And all likelihood, if you wanted to do that, though,
yeah, which you can do right through your dashboard, like he showed you.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so hopefully that's helpful. Yeah, and in terms of the full service package, include help with the applications. It's all the financial aid applications. If you're an underclassmen student and you're looking for admissions help, we have those packages as well, which you can see on our website, but those are additional costs and services for admission stuff. These applications, we'll do the financial aid applications for you, but not the admissions applications under the package that I'm talking about. Okay, so I think if you're going to sign up for our full service package, you don't have to create an account on the you can, let me just show you that quickly. One second here. If you are if you want to sign up with our full service package, you can do so right through here. Just providing the link. Somebody asked for it. And you don't need to create a MyCap account. You can do it right through here at the bottom. You'll scroll down to this link. We'll ask you for your name. You'll submit and pay, and then we'll start our onboarding process. But if you want to book an hour or upgrade to the platform, you'll need to do that through mycap.collegeapro.com. That would be the best way to do that. Yeah, but if you're the DIYer, you're going to do it through the account. If you want the full service package or the FAFSA and CSS package, you don't need to do it through. You don't need to create an account. Okay, Peggy, I hopefully we provided some value tonight. I feel like we did.
You just answered the one about start your portal before signing up for the packages, right? The one in chat.
I think I did. Yeah, you don't need to start a portal if you're signing up for one of the comprehensive packages. If you're buying an hour, then you do. Yep. Yep. I think I answered that.
All right. Well, we went 5 minutes over, so thanks for hanging with us.
Hang with us.
And thanks for being our groupie if you are a groupie.
Yeah, if you're a groupie. Yeah, Peggy, I'm telling you, we might have to get some t-shirts or something, some
I
swag.
might have to break out my guitar the next time and just break
Do
into song. Do a little Springsteen for the group, right?
That's it. Play us out. Play us out, Peggy.
All
Good night,
right,
everybody. Thank you.
guys. Well, have a great night and stay tuned and keep engaged.
That's it. Bye, guys.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Take care, everybody.